Time for the No Panic Zone. I'm Steve Gruber. I am America's voice. I'm an anti-socialist. That will never change. Here are the three big things you need to know right now. Number one, Elon Musk seems to be enjoying his time on Twitter, making fun of Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey, among other things, saying his account reads more like a parody than anything else. We'll get to that. Let's see. Number two, besides having all the momentum on all the issues, the Republicans lost a chance to control the Senate, and sadly, Mitch McConnell probably doesn't even care. Number three, my friends, it's time for some straight talk about the midterm elections. It held so much promise for Republicans, but slipped away into a pile that would have, could have, and should have happened, but didn't. Would have, could have, and should have, and didn't. First of all, I was wrong. Very wrong about how I read the election. I was of the belief that the Republicans, even with some less than perfect candidates, and let's be honest, candidates are never perfect. But with some less than perfect candidates in some key races, we're still very well positioned to take control of the Senate and the House. Today, the Senate is in Democrat hands. It's not because the election was stolen, but more that it was manipulated, all right? And part of it was squandered by the red team, let's be honest. But we'll get to the manipulation. You can call it fraud. I call it manipulation. Doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. Let me start with this. This past Tuesday is the last time I will ever vote on Election Day, unless the rules are changed in the future. I know that in Michigan, where I live, I have to follow the rules as written, the ones written by Democrats, and that's okay. I will vote on the first day possible. I will vote on the first day possible, and then I will do what the Democrats have been doing successfully for the last two election cycles. And that is calling my friends and anyone else I know to make sure they voted, to get those low propensity voters to cast a ballot. You see, here in Michigan, 1 million people that voted for Donald Trump in 2020 didn't vote at all. I'll get to that in a moment. Didn't vote at all last Tuesday. That would have meant a different outcome in several races if they had. I am happy to do whatever I can under the law, and with new laws coming, that could include picking up ballots and dropping them off at drop boxes. I don't like that either, but in order to win on Election Day, we have to run up the score early, just like the Democrats did in 2020 and 22 in Michigan and Pennsylvania and elsewhere. I know this has to happen because in Michigan, and I'm guessing across many parts of this country, people that voted for Trump in 2020 stayed home, like I said, in huge numbers and didn't vote at all. That's one problem. It's a big problem. An analysis from Bridge Magazine, Michigan, looked at all 83 counties in the state, and it found every single county. Trump's voters didn't cast ballots in huge numbers. In one of the most important counties in the state for the Republicans, Macomb County, the Trump voters dropped by more than 25%. That was the difference across the state. The same was true in Wayne and Genesee counties. And in critical rural areas like Shiawassee, Eaton, and Livingston counties, the drop was 15 to 20 points. You cannot win if you don't get your low propensity voters to cast a ballot. That's a fact. That is where the Democrats have mastered the game in recent cycles, and that's what I'm talking about, low propensity voters. Clearly, never Trumpers were a nuisance to the America First agenda since 2015. I can't stand them. But only Trumpers are also deadly to Republican chances of winning important races ever again. If we don't start playing the game with the rules that they have put in place, it's never going to change. So I'm going to get used to voting early. I think you should too. And then getting as many people as you can to do the same and do whatever it takes to get them on board and on the board. Make sure they turn in a ballot. That's the only way Republicans can win in several states, including Michigan, Pennsylvania, possibly Nevada and Arizona too, which are all critical to winning a presidential election. And by the way, if you voted for President Trump and claimed to be a patriot, but made some lame excuse for not showing up this time around and you didn't vote, then what is happening right now is in large part on you. And I, for one, don't want to hear you complain. Not until you do better and do your part by getting off the couch and participating. We are at a critical juncture for the Republican Party and for this country. The Democrats have the Senate, and it seems the Republicans will have the House, but only by a hair. That's still not guaranteed, so more digging is needed. What else did we miss? Well, abortion was a bigger factor on the election, bigger than I anticipated. I told you early on that the whole The whole all or none divide on abortion was not a great place for Republicans because people, especially young people, Republicans included, were far more likely to go with pro-choice positions over no abortions allowed ever. And that's what happened. I talked to people over the weekend who have children that are in their 20s and 30s that are otherwise conservative that couldn't support the no abortions ever position. Don't have to like it. That's the atmosphere we live in. And that brings me to Generation Z. This is the one that I missed completely. So did just about everyone else. Generation Z voted in big numbers. Again, why? Because the Democrats don't care about single votes. They care about ballots. How are the ballots distributed? How are the ballots collected? That's what they've mastered in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan. So low propensity voters like young people, Generation Z, got massive ballots and then they were collected. And Generation Z voted in big numbers relative to young people voting in the past. And those under 30 voted dramatically Democrat because we haven't raised our kids very well, honestly. The economy, when polled, was the number one issue. Every poll showed it. Every poll still shows it. But for Generation Z, for Gen Z, it's not much of an issue. They've lived very easy lives with mom and dad busting ass so they can sit on theirs and complain. They've also been trained to hate Republicans for as long as they've been alive because that's what the government schools do. Democrat good, Republican bad. So that's an issue too. The other group, the voted hard blue, single women. In most other categories, Republicans did pretty well, but pretty well, including winning the national popular vote by a wide margin, 7 million votes, was woefully inadequate. That brings me to the question of leadership. Mitch McConnell has got to go. The idea that he spent millions on the Alaska Senate race is outrageous. It was never going to go to a Democrat. He just wanted for his own rhino and friend Lisa Murkowski to come home with a seat. Kevin McCarthy also failed with any serious messaging before the election, 150 pages of gobbledygook. He shouldn't get the gavel, but he might. Even if the Republicans squeak out a majority there. Listen, the gavel doesn't have a size, small, medium, and large. Either you have it or you don't. And Nancy Pelosi, with a 5-seat majority, rammed trillions of dollars in spending and other garbage down your throat and mine for the last session. And that leaves us with the question of President Donald Trump. What will he do now? President Joe Biden, his policies, very unpopular, but lackluster performances by Republicans keep him high-stepping. President Trump set to announce his candidacy for president tomorrow night at Mar-a-Lago. I personally think with the Senate race in Georgia still in the balance, that's a very bad idea. Unless the president, the former president, does something really big. If he declares he is a candidate but says before he does that he understands how important Herschel Walker being elected to Senate from Georgia is to Georgia and America, and he's ready to bury the hatchet with Georgia's freshly reelected Governor Brian Kemp and others, he could do something that nobody else can do right now. He can heal the Republican Party and the fractures in it. Donald Trump can do this uniquely. I'm going to talk more about this and continue this conversation after the break. This is the Steve Gruber Show.